There are rivers that shape landscapes and rivers that shape who we become. For some, they are just water. But for others, they are memory, identity, and purpose. This is the story of a river that flows across borders. From the mountains of Greece to the valleys of Albania, the Aoos, known downstream as Vjosa, remains one of Europe's last wild rivers. Untamed, unbroken, alive. But even here, its future is uncertain. Irilena Linardaki is a biologist from Greece. Her connection to this river didn't begin in a laboratory, but in her childhood.
I used to know Aoos Vjosa since a very young age because my grandmother has her roots in Epirus. So we would go to our village, which is near the Patagonia village complex, very close to the Albanian borders, near Gjirokastër. And we would go there every summer since a very young age to spend the summer holidays so we could swim there. And therefore, from a very young age, I formed how a river is based on my experience with Aoos. So I understood that the rivers are wild, are clean, crystal clear water, drinking water. They offer swimming spots. I could see amateur fishermen going there to fish. So that was what I understood of what rivers are.
Clear waters, cold currents, moments that quietly define what nature means. Before we learn, it can disappear. But that understanding changed.
I went abroad. I went to Central Europe to do my undergraduate studies and my master's studies in biology. And I realized that what I thought that was a rule was actually the exception to the rule, because rivers in Europe have actually been fragmented, have been degraded. There is dams, there is diversions, channels all over the place, and there's more than 1 million barriers and dams across European rivers. So that's where I understood that we are very lucky to have a river like this in our countries, and this gave me the need to protect it myself as a biologist. So then I bumped into some colleagues from MedINA, and we had a nice conversation, and I ended up being the project manager of a Reconnect project funded by Pond, and I worked for protecting the free flow of Aoos.
More than 1 million barriers across Europe's rivers. Dams, diversions, silence where water once moved freely. And suddenly, the Aoos was no longer just home. It became something to defend. Even here, the pressures are growing. Hydropower expansion, water extraction, pollution, and the slow, invisible force of climate change.
So one of the threats that we have been monitoring in Aoos, at least in the Greek part, is the construction and spatial planning of small hydropower plants. Due to the energy transition towards renewables, there is an increased tendency of small hydropower plant construction. So at the moment, there is currently 32 different small hydropower plants being planned in the whole Aoos River and its tributaries, and 4 of them already exist. So in total, there is 36 different hydros that are threaten the free flow of a river.
At the birthplace of the river, a wound. A stretch where water no longer flows as it should.
Apart from that, there is a huge issue in the Aoos Springs because of a dam that exists there, a large dam that exists since 1987, and it has caused a complete lack of ecological flow downstream of the dam. So basically, where the river is born, there is no flow whatsoever because there was not a specific law by then when the dam was constructed to account for the provision of an ecological flow downstream. And this causes many different impacts, from impacts to the local biodiversity of the fish species to hydromorphological impacts.
And beyond dams,
there is just a small stream from leakage, basically, downstream of the dam. And the impact is very visible up to 50 kilometers, very close to the Greek-Albanian borders. So this is another threat that is the wound of Aoos Vjosa, and it should be managed as a priority at the moment in the Greek side. And apart from that, we have invasive species, the rainbow trout that escape from fish farms. There is also an issue with the fish farms because we have noticed that the effluent water from the fish farms that is being diverted from the river and then it's returned to the river, it's not filtered. So we need to check what are the current biosecurity regulations and where they are adhered by the aquaculture companies. And also there is a lot of water irrigation from bottling companies. And we're talking about a river that is a resource that it's not infinite. And we need to be very careful of how we manage it in the long term, especially under the threat and the pressure of the climate crisis.
less snow, less water, more strain on a system that has flowed freely for centuries. Protecting a river is not only about science, it's about people, the ones who grow up beside it, who depend on it, who return to it again and again. Because a river is never just a resource, it is part of who they are.
The most hard thing and the most sustainable thing to do in order to see a positive change is to build a relationship of trust with the local community, because they are the ones that will put pressure through a bottom-up approach and cause the change we want to see in many cases. We are trying to help the local communities thrive by protecting the natural resources that they depend on, like the river itself and the free flow of the river. Also, we see the whole system, we approach it in a more holistic conservation, because the water is not just cubic meters of water, the river, but it's a whole ecosystem, it's a living landscape that supports the communities themselves, that supports the cultural aspect and the traditions and their local economies. So we're trying to make them understand that we will make a future together with their input. And we do that from working locally with educational campaigns, with raising awareness.
A long process, listening before leading. One project even turns children into decision makers.
We have many different approaches at the schools, many different activities at the schools. One very recent project that we had was the Let It Flow, which was an educational project where MedINA created a role-playing game for school children of the region. And it was also translated in Albanian, and it's available in Albanian, as you know. So this role-playing game puts the students and the young people of the area into the shoes of the different stakeholders in order to try to have a productive conversation and to understand how complex it is to manage a river ecosystem and a natural resource, so that all the different members of the community reach an agreement without conflict. So it was a very experiential game that it was a great success for the schools, and it helps the people who will be the future of the local community to have a deeper knowledge and understanding of the complex system that needs a holistic approach. So yes, I think that's the approach of MedINA, and we have managed to build a relationship of trust between the local community, and it's working well.
Because the future of a river depends on those who will inherit it. In 2023, something changed.
Such achievements should be celebrated every day. It's still fresh, it's still very important, and it's a great achievement for Albania, for Greece, for the Balkans, for Europe, the declaration of Vjosa National Park. I think it was a milestone because it brought in the spotlight the importance of protecting rivers. It brought in the spotlight a new conservation concept, that of an entire river ecosystem being protected for being free-flowing, for being a wild river, and not just a national park, a forest. It was a river in the focus.
A global moment. A river recognized not just as landscape, but as a living system worth protecting whole.
This was a new conservation concept that came into the surface, and it also built a momentum during that time in the Greek part as well. That year was a great year for both nations, for both countries, and for river protection, for wild rivers worldwide. I think it was a great year of milestones and accomplishments.
A ripple effect. Across borders, across systems, but the vision goes further.
We have a common vision, and I think Transboundary Wild River National Park would be the ultimate goal towards a unified protection of the river from its springs to its delta through all its tributaries, so that we have a common framework of protection along this mosaic of different protection frameworks that we are currently having. Of course, we are slowly moving with stable steps toward that direction from both parts. And I think it's very important that this common vision is recognized among the different civil society organizations of both countries and the local community members of both countries.
One river, one ecosystem, shared responsibility. For Irilena, this is more than a career.
I feel very lucky. I feel like I contribute my little piece to something that is very meaningful and causes positive change, both in the environment and the biodiversity, under these very difficult times that we are experiencing globally. And that I feel very lucky that I work very close, hand by hand, with the local community to achieve this, because I wouldn't be able to imagine having a positive change without the contribution of the local community.
A quiet kind of purpose, the kind that doesn't need recognition, only persistence. And to those who might follow this path,
keep showing up, keep believing that your work matters, because it does, more than you know sometimes. When you're doing it, maybe you don't understand that you're having an impact, but you actually do have.
Because protecting a river
isn't just environmental work, it's justice work as well. It's a love work, and I think it's future building. You're not going to save the world in a day, so yes, keep showing up.
Rivers don't ask for attention. They don't demand protection. They simply flow. But their future depends on those who choose to care. The Aoos, the Vjosa, a river that refuses to be divided, a story that flows beyond borders, and a reminder that even the wildest rivers need voices to keep them free. Across this season of River Women, we have followed the flow of rivers, but more importantly, we have followed the voices of women who refuse to let them fade. From remote valleys to international platforms, we have met scientists, activists, and guardians of water, women who stand at the front lines of nature protection. They come from different countries, different cultures, different paths in life, yet they are connected by something deeper, a shared understanding that rivers are not just landscape, they are life itself, Through their work, we have seen the reality rivers face today: fragmentation, pollution, overuse, and the growing pressure of a changing climate. But we have also seen something else: resilience, courage, and an unshakable belief that change is still possible. Because protecting a river is never just about saving water. It is about protecting memory, protecting identity, protecting the future of communities that depend on its flow. And time and again, these women have reminded us of one simple truth: that real change does not begin with systems, it begins with people, with those who choose to speak, to act, to show up, even when the outcome is uncertain. Their stories are different, but their message is the same. You don't have to be an expert to care. You don't have to be many to make a difference. Sometimes, it only takes one voice to start a movement. As this season comes to a close, the rivers we have encountered continue to flow, carrying with them both the weight of today and the promise of tomorrow. And so does the responsibility. Because the future of our rivers will not be decided somewhere far away. It will be shaped by the choices we make every single day. This is River Women, a podcast from Lumi, hosted by me, Besjana Guri. Until next season, listen to the rivers. They are still speaking.